Why do you think good people do bad things? I'm going to give you a really long time to think about that, because I'm not going to preach on this today. Because what happened this week was I attended the annual meeting of Start Me Up Niagara, and I met Vince Beyer, who has a story about what happened to him when he was labeled. And I think if we just stay with labeling one another and hearing the story of how words can kill, that's enough for us to deal with today. So I'm going to invite Vince to come and to share with you his story, and then I'll return and try to bring a word of gospel to that. Thank you. To move the mic.
Thank you, Pastor Roseanne. Yes, okay. I was born in Oakville. I was the oldest of 7 boys, and in 13 years, so there was not a whole lot of time between, like, one-on-one with your parents, if you can imagine. And what I developed a really, I was very, very shy to the point where I couldn't even talk. So I had a stuttering problem, but even until grades 2 and 3, I couldn't even speak to an adult. All that would come out was a loud whisper. And I've heard people that have had the same thing. But also, I wasn't too smart. I remember in grade 1, I traded a whole bag of alleys that my parents bought for me for 3 big alleys. Not a very good. My parents weren't impressed when I got home with the trade. And then in grade 2, they had spelling bees or spelling tests every week, and all the kids who had perfect scores would get a star beside their name on their Bristol board, on the bulletin board. Well, I could never get a perfect spelling test, and so against my name there were no stars. And I guess that upset me to the point where my mom went to the school and spoke with the grade 2 teacher and asked if she would just put 1 star beside my name, but she wouldn't do it. It was around that time also that I found out that I had big lips. I went to the store one day, and about 3 or 4 guys just saw that and just started calling me names. And it just, whoa, it upset me. I came home and my parents, or my mom, found out, and she marched us back to the store to find out who it was, and then she let those kids have it. In grade 3, the principal asked my parents to come in for a meeting. And my parents took me with them, and the principal sat me outside of her office, and then she ushered in my parents, and she said to my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Bear, I'm sorry to have to say this, but your son Vincent will never amount to anything. She was going by my poor speaking skills, I guess, and my lack of ability to learn quickly, perhaps. But I remember how all that shaped my self-esteem. I remember we did what was called bottle hunts. You'd get like 2 cents for every bottle that you'd find in the ditch or something. And I remember going for bottle hunts, but whenever I came up, maybe I was walking toward a group of older kids, I would contort my face in an effort to make them feel sorry for me, so in a hope that they wouldn't pick on me as I walked by. That was the state of my self-esteem back in those years. I never had a best friend till grade 7. Finally, the guy down the street, Gil and I became good friends, and he had a pool table in his basement. We shot pool, listening to the best of the Guess Who. It was great. They had a cottage. They invited me to their cottage, and we went water skiing and fishing. It was great. And then I was supposed to go to high school in Oakville and be in the same homeroom as Gil. And my parents were building a house in Grimsby, and they moved us 2 weeks before school started, before my grade 9. They moved us to Grimsby Mountain, We had 7 boys. My dad felt we needed more space for the boys. And so they found out which schools were available for me from Grimsby, and they chose Dennis Morris. And so they found out there was a bus going from Grimsby all the way through all the towns toward St. Catharines. They put me on the bus. They said, Vince, here's your paperwork. Go to the office. Tell them you want to be enrolled in the school. And so here I was in a strange town, going on a strange bus with strange people to another strange city. And so it was all very new to me. And because my social skills weren't really great to begin with, I never really grew attached to anyone. And I can really say that I never had a best friend in high school. But I remember the long bus rides. They were like about an hour and 15 minutes. I would just sit. I would be staring out the window. Other kids in the bus would be playing euchre and chit-chatting, but I was like a loner. So that's how my self-esteem was affected me. I remember in grade 10 English, the girl down the road, we were in the same class, and she did a presentation for the class, and I thought, no way, there's no way I'm going to get up there and do a presentation. And so they had me face down to phase 2 English for that reason. Anyway, I went to Niagara College, did the mechanical drafting course there, tried to do a presentation there, got through the first line, then I just froze. I finished off the course. I found a job, quit the job after 5 months. It was a German company. And then Dofasco called me, so that was my big break, Dofasco. And then I found a girlfriend, so life was good. But then as we started thinking about marriage and other issues with their family, the pressures of life got too much. And my depression led to me quitting my job at Dofasco. I thought it was my job. You know, when you can't handle life, when you're filled with anxiety and everything's hard, you're looking for reasons why you can't do it. And eventually you just can't do it anymore. So I made an exit. I dropped the girlfriend, quit my job, moved out of the house, and then that lasted about a year. I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I thought to myself, I wonder what would happen if I was to force feed myself positive statements. So the girl that I had been dating was a Christian, and she taught me the importance of memorizing God's Word. And so what I did was I took the Bible and I took out all in the New Testament, all of the do verses, any verse that taught me what I should do as a Christian, and any other verse that seemed like it was an important verse. And so I began to slowly say those, memorize them, and just all day long I would be saying these verses, and I would be building my inner man with these verses, and I'd be creating a stronger connection with God doing these. And within 3 days I noticed a real difference. And then within 2 weeks I had found a new drafting job, so I was back in the workforce. The anxiety was still bad. I remember about the 3rd day of the new job, I had to make the corner to go on the 403 to Dundas for the job. And I had to wrestle with my arms to make that corner because my heart was so broken. I just didn't want to do it, but I made myself do it. And it got easier and easier. And then throughout my job, during the lunch hour, as I was walking in the shop, I'd be just, memorizing saying these verses over and over just to prop my poor self-esteem up. And eventually I met another girl, and we got married, and kids started coming along. And when you're married, more stress happens. And so my answer to more stress was more verses. And I got to a point where I was memorizing 300 verses a day, just saying them out loud. Sometimes I'd say them twice. If it was a really bad day, I'd go through all 300 twice. And so life was still hard. But I was always looking for self-help books, looking for tips on how to get well. And that stress, though, 20 years ago, I went to the doctor and I said, I'm having really trouble sleeping. And instead of telling me that I had anxiety, I didn't even know what anxiety was. You know, if you grow up with something, you don't know that it's there. He should have said, Vince, you have anxiety. You're trying too hard. You need to look at life and take it a little easier. Instead of saying that, he said, take these pills. And so I took these pills. Sure, they helped me sleep. And so I took the pills, read more and more self-help books, developed my self-esteem. But then I went the opposite, the extreme. I began quitting jobs.